again. This is once again Scott Johnson, aka Dad on Rails, and I'm here to talk to you today about yet another database topic. Okay, and the database topic today is going to be what's called migrations. Okay, when you generate a model in Rails, and we're going to go back to our canonical products model. So you say Rails G model product. Okay, and product might be uppercase or lowercase, doesn't matter. Rails is smart and it'll figure it out. Here is what Rails does. Rails places a file in app/models/product.rb, and in this is a class that will inherit from application record, and this will define the methods that talk to the product, that talk to the product table in the database. Okay? Then the next thing it will do is it will create a file called db/migrate/timestamp, and then some other things, and I can't remember what the actual baseline name is because it is 6:27 in the morning, and I am driving. And what that will have is the method that create the class that creates your baseline products table. Okay, so it's going to basically say create table, and there's going to be a list of the attributes that make up your products table. Okay, hang on, I got to turn. There you go. Okay. And there's also going to be a test file. There's also going to be a test file. And this is going to be test/model/product or spec/model/product. Okay. And now you put in the fields into the so your migration looks something like create table products, do pipe t pipe. Then the next one is t.string or t.date or t.datetime, etc. And then colon, the column name, and then any attributes. Okay, and what that's saying is you want to create within the products table a element or a column inside the table of a particular given class, and string is always the canonical example. And so let's say we want to create a name, t.string space colon name. Enter. Next one, maybe t.price colon float. Enter. t.color or t.string space colon, excuse me, my price was wrong. t.float space colon price. And then enter t.string space colon color, enter. There's another end statement, and then follow any indexes. Okay? And yes, as I am recording this, I'm realizing I really need some notes, and I know how to do that. I will get that in place for the next time I start doing a bunch of these. It is hard even for an expert to wing it. Okay. And that's a migration. And at the point you create your first table, there's one migration. All right. Unless there are others, and I'll talk about that. Okay. So now you run this, and that file I said was located in db/migrate, and then it says timespace, and then it's usually something like createproducts.rb. Okay. That timestamp starts with the year, so 2020. Then it starts with the month 05, 02 or 03, and then a bunch of numbers that represent the time that migration was generated. Now, the reason that timestamp is there is to control the order in which migrations are executed, and this is important because migrations sometimes refer to each other. And so if you have two people on a team, you have Scott, which is me, and you have Jared, which is an old friend of mine that used to do Rails with me. We both create migrations, and then when I pull his changes down, my migrations best not conflict with his, And so you have to know what order to execute them in. And now I will give you some history. Originally, back in the days of prehistory, and I think this dates back to Rails 2, migrations used to be ordinally numbered. So the first migration I created was 0000001, the second one was 00002, and so on. And then when Jared generated his migrations, his first migration was 00001. And as you can tell here, when we ran those, there would be a conflict, and that was particularly hellish. And that's how we got timestamp migrations. Even smart software engineers make mistakes and don't see things. Ordinal migration sounds great when you only have one engineer. Okay. So now, let's talk about what a migration actually is under the hood. A migration is a routine that modifies the state of the database. It literally migrates it from one state to another, and it does so in an orderly and controlled fashion. Now, when I entered Rails, I was an expert database programmer, and I had a lot of ideas about how the database should operate, and I had my own damn ideas. And I was convinced that I was smarter than Rails, and I was convinced there was going to be a problem with migrations. I have since that time built databases that are multiple terabytes in size, tens of millions of rows across in each table, and I have never actually had a problem with migrations as long as I understood what the hell I was doing. The Rails migration facility is robust, it is powerful, and it is excellent. Okay? Now, that said, you can get yourself into trouble, and we're about to explain that. All right. So let us say, for example, that you need to add a new column onto your products table, and that column is going to be called size. You have already defined your products table. You have already run bundle exec rake db migrate, which is the command which executes all of your migrations. Okay? So, how then do you add a column? Well, what you do is you do bundle exec Rails G migration as opposed to Rails G model, and you type the name of migration. Add _size _to _products. And that will generate a migration in which you can put whatever you want, and your command here would be an add command. So simply add a column onto the products table. Okay. And then when you run bundle exec rake db migrate, that will add that products column. And this sounds great, and it is in development. In development, this is a sublime and perfect experience. But in production, productions can be problematic. So I have to go database concept, and it's the only way to explain it. So a database is a collection of information that represents the information in your running application. And this information, generally speaking, is organized into tables, and tables are collections of like information. Now, underlying a database is a concept called ACID, A-C-I-D, and this is true for relational databases. ACID does not apply for NoSQL databases, although some of the aspects of it are really important. And basically, ACID stands for atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability. And basically what that says is that what you do in the database should be atomic, i.e. a change to one row should not affect another row. And atomicity is mostly what's called a transactional concept, and we haven't talked about transactions at all. Consistency, i.e. your database should always remain consistent. And what that means is the structure within a single table should always be the same. isolation, things that should happen to one row are isolated to one row, and durability, that you can safely and regularly persist. And if you are a real database person, you know this better than I do. You're shaking your hand at the screen going, Scott! And I'm sorry. Again, 6:36 in the damn morning. All right. Now, let's say you have a table of products, and that table of products has 10 rows in it. Here is what happens under the hood when you execute a migration. The underlying database will first lock the data, right? Then what it will do is it will make a copy of the entire table. Then what it will do is it will apply your migration to the copy. Then what it will do, if that migration executes successfully, it will copy the new table over in place of the old table. Okay? Actually, no. I think it deletes the old. I think it renames the old table to the new table, deletes the old table. But the point, and this will differ slightly based on the database that you're on. But the idea here is consistency and durability come into play when you have migrations. And the reason this is important is when you have a table that has 5 rows in it, because you only got 5 products, this does not matter. When you have a table with millions of rows, this matters fundamentally. And the reason this matters is because you have to make copies of data on disk, and those copies can be slow. At times, you may find yourself working on a non-SSD system, and you may have a table with millions and millions of rows, and that copy might take an hour or longer. In the pre-SSD days, I can turn my lights off now. Yeah, now you can see me. I used to run a series of migrations that would sometimes take a day to complete. And let me tell you, that's a nail biter, because you start that migration and you are scared the whole time. Okay. And if you find yourself running large databases, what you will find is that there are different ways to do migrations in Rails available through what are called gems. And in particular, you want to look into what's called strong migrations, and you want to look into what's called the LHC, the LHM, the Large Hadron Migration Tool. Okay? And these are third-party tools that extend Rails, and they rewrite the way some of the core stuff around how Rails works, and to make it better for scalability. These things are a pain in the ass in development. Let me tell you, pain in the ass. But Ann Kane, A-N-K-N-E, one of the guys in the Rails community I respect, he wrote strong migrations and he did a phenomenal job, but it's a pain in the ass in development. Okay. All right, so we are 13 minutes in, people. And we have talked about migrations. Migrations are change routines to the state of your database. And the next thing to understand is a migration, in my opinion, should do one thing and one thing only, i.e., a migration should generate a model, or it should generate a change to a model, and in my opinion, it should not modify the state of the data in the model, okay? I.e., you should not use a migration to seed data in. In my opinion, that belongs in a separate rake task. The value to doing it in a migration, however, is that migrations are automatically executed as part of your deployment structure. So if you need to put some data in a table, when that table first goes live, you can do that by generating a migration. So you might say, bundle exec Rails G migration seed products. And then in that migration, you can have routines that will literally, have straight up Ruby code that will literally insert data into the table. Or what you could do is you could put the syntax to invoke a rake task, and that way you get the best of both worlds. You get the migration running as part of the deployment cycle, but you have that code that puts the data in separate, and that's useful because then you will have a nice separation of concerns. Okay. And that is a nicely formatted lecture, about 15 minutes, on migrations. Migrations are routines that change the state of the data. They might create tables, they might add columns, they might add indexes, or they might seed data. And if you seed data, do it by invoking a rake task. Thank you very much. Take care.